Welcome. Thanks for joining us for this devotional from the You Need Faith in Jesus team. Have you ever thought about a single moment in history so powerful it defined an entire nation? An event where the very presence of God physically changed the world and made mountains literally skip. Well, today we're diving into that incredible story of God's power, right from Psalm 114.
So, the psalm kicks off with these powerful words. When Israel went out of Egypt, the house of Jacob from a people of strange language. Judah was his sanctuary and Israel his dominion. This throws us right back into the Exodus. And you got to understand, this wasn't just a change of scenery. The house of Jacob was walking away from generations of slavery, a totally foreign culture, and the worship of false gods. This was the moment that changed absolutely everything for them.
And that leads us to our first huge point. This journey was so much more than a physical one. It was a complete and total transformation of their identity, of who they belonged to.
Just look at the language here. It's so powerful. They went from being slaves in Egypt to becoming God's dominion. That's the kingdom he personally rules. They went from being Pharaoh's property to becoming God's sanctuary, his actual holy dwelling place on earth. The whole point is this massive shift from being somebody else's property to being God's very own treasured possession.
Leviticus 20:26 really explains the why behind all of this. God himself says, "I, the Lord, am holy, and have severed you from other people, that ye should be mine." That word severed, that's a strong word. It means he intentionally cut them away from everyone else for a special purpose. It was personal, it was deliberate, and it was complete.
In this ancient story, it paints such a beautiful picture of salvation for you and me today. When we put our faith in Jesus, God brings us out of our own Egypt of sin. We're not slaves to that old life anymore. We become his sanctuary, a place for his Holy Spirit to actually live. Our whole identity gets a complete rewrite.
Okay, so let's move on to the next part, because this is where it gets really wild. It wasn't just the people who were changed. The physical world itself had a jaw-dropping reaction to what God was doing. The psalmist uses this incredible poetic language. He says, "The sea saw it and fled. Jordan was driven back." Now he's talking about two huge miracles here. First, the parting of the Red Sea, and then 40 years later, the Jordan River stopping in its tracks so the next generation could enter the Promised Land. The laws of nature just stopped because their creator showed up.
And it gets even more intense. This picture of mountains skipping like rams, well, that points us right to that awesome and frankly terrifying scene at Mount Sinai. When God came down to give his law, the entire mountain shook so violently in his presence. The very foundations of the earth knew their king had arrived.
And this is just such a vital reminder for us, isn't it? Those obstacles in your life that feel as huge and unmovable as a mountain, or as overwhelming as the sea, they are nothing to the very same God who is alive and at work today.
So, the psalmist has set this amazing scene, right? All these incredible miracles. And now, he builds the suspense by asking this masterful series of questions.
He talks right to creation itself. He asks, "Hey, sea, what was wrong with you? Why'd you run away?" He asks the Jordan why it turned back, and the mountains why they skipped around like sheep. He just lets these questions hang there, making us all focus on the reason, the cause of all these incredible events.
Now, these questions don't come from confusion. Oh no, they come from a place of deep, deep worship and awe. It's a lot like the disciples in the boat with Jesus, After he calmed that crazy storm, they just looked at each other and asked, "What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" They saw the miracle, and it made them ask about the miracle maker.
And now, after all that anticipation, we finally get to the climax of the whole psalm. The big, dramatic answer is finally revealed.
The answer is so simple, but so profound. What was it? The presence of the Lord. See, it wasn't the people. The sea didn't run away from Israel. The mountains didn't start skipping for the house of Jacob. All of creation was reacting to one thing and one thing only: the awesome, holy, powerful presence of God himself.
The psalmist just lays it all out. "Tremble, thou earth, at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob." The whole planet is told to respond. And it's not just trembling in terror, but in reverent awe before his creator, the God who chose and rescued his people.
But the psalm isn't done yet. It gives us one last miracle, and this one shows us a totally different side of God's character. He isn't just a God of mind-blowing power. He's also a God of intimate, personal care.
This is just stunning. Think about it.
In the middle of a barren, dead wilderness, God brought life from the most impossible source you could ever imagine, a hard, flinty rock. And he didn't just give them a trickle. No, he gave them a pool, a fountain of life-giving water. It just proves that his power and his provision are completely tied together.
Okay, so how do we take all of these powerful truths and actually apply them to our lives today? Let's talk about how we can live in his presence right here in the middle of our own wilderness.
If you walk away with just one thing from this entire psalm, please let it be this: God's presence changes everything. From parting a sea to bringing water from a stone, his presence is the spark that makes the impossible happen. It changes everything it touches.
So let's make this super practical. Here are 3 simple steps. First, just take a moment today to acknowledge his awesome presence in your life. Just stop and realize he's there. Second, be real with him. Name that impossible rock in your life, that hard, dry situation that just seems hopeless. And finally, trust his life-giving power to bring refreshment and hope right where there isn't any.
So let's end with this thought. He is the same God today. The God of Jacob, the one who turned a chunk of flint into a fountain, is with you right this second. So the question for you is, what dry place in your life is just waiting for you to invite his powerful, life-changing presence right into it?